I'm Rachel Dworkin with the Chemung County Historical Society. I'm here at the Newfield Fire Station for the Finger Lakes Finns Association meeting on September 16th, 2018, and I am here interviewing
Helen Sunderlin.
Thank you. I understand you grew up in the Trumansburg area. When was that? Or when were you born?
Well, I was born July of 1949 and in New York City, but my parents moved to the country. It was about in 1950, and my parents bought a farmhouse in Trumansburg. When they moved from New York City, they were living with my mother's cousin, Anna Carlson, in Interlaken, and they had heard about a farm for sale in Trumansburg. And my parents then bought the farm, and I think it was the fall of 1950.
What kind of farm was it?
Well, it was quite a large farm. There was large acreage there, and we grew crops, and we had chickens. And we sold eggs, and I even remember as a little girl making butter, and I kept asking my mother if I was done churning the wooden churn for the butter, and my arm would get so tired, and my mother would just say a little bit more, a little bit more. And growing up on the farm, but my mother always had $1 for me on banking day on Tuesday, and to this day I still remember the banking days and how to save money from when I was a little girl.
So, was there a particularly large Finnish community in the Trumansburg Interlaken area, and that's why your parents came?
Yes. One of our neighbors was Stanley Koskinen and Laura Koskinen. They had a chicken farm, and we knew there was the Wheaty family that my parents knew, but many of our friends were in Interlaken, and there was Elmer Ahos, and then there was John and Ida Guntu, my aunt's family, and there were many, and actually I grew up with the Finns as a teenager, and we always had dinner parties in our home, and I don't even remember going out to eat in the restaurant as a little girl, or even as a teenager. We were always in Finnish homes, and we had Hanna Jaakkola was the baker, and she made beautiful cakes for the parties, whether it was a birthday party or an anniversary party for the Finns. And there are memories that will just stay with me because I grew up with them.
Now, I understand you're a baker yourself and you make that amazing bread. Where did you learn to do that?
Oh, I learned it from my mother. And I can remember one time I asked my mother for some of the dough when she was baking, and she gave me this tiny little ball in my hand. And I just remember looking at that little tiny ball, and what was I going to do with this ball of dough? Why it was such a little piece of dough. But when I came, my mother would bake 10 pounds of bread at a time when I came home from school, from the school bus. And she'd have many loaves that were sitting on the kitchen counter, warm of the baked Finnish bread. And my father always wanted me to learn how to make bulla. And as I grew up, I didn't understand the whole story about bulla. That I always wondered, do people really what the meaning of the bulla was? And I found out that when I was grown up and I went to Finland, that bulla was a solid Finnish tradition for many generations in the Finnish family. But my mother used the cardamom. She did it and ground it by hand, and she would make, as I said, 10 pounds at a time. She would make the long ones that were called the bitke, pulla, or she would make the round ones which resembled the Christmas wreath. And also the last time we visited Finland, you can even buy bulla at the train station, at the kiosk, and they were round individual ones, and they had fillings in them. They were really delicious, and they were also available in the coffee shops. And our family also, our relatives had it at the table with coffee.
That's a lot of bread, 10 pounds of bread. Was that like once a week, that she was making that, or?
Well, I don't recall exactly how often she made it, but we grew up. I had an older brother, and I had my sisters were Sonia, Jeannie, and my little sister Barbara, and so we had 5. We had a big family, and anytime we had guests come, we always had something to put on the coffee table, and usually there was bulla, so that she could take out of the freezer. And that's the way it was back in the day. And when my mother cooked for a big family, she made a big pot of soup, or she would make a roasted turkey in the oven, or a roast. And it was always Sunday dinner at 1 o'clock that we had. So having grown up in a big family, we had a lot of food, and we had meat in the freezer.
Okay. So speaking of food, I see everyone's lining up. So I guess we're going to call it quits. Thank you very much for chatting with me.
Okay, well, thank you.